This is a revolutionary movement. Anytime you change the minds and hearts of people, that's a revolutionary.
I said, get out of that slavery teaching. That's the white man's teaching to keep you blind, deaf, and dumb to the knowledge of truth.
Without firing a weapon.
Wallace Muhammad grew up listening to his father's teachings and believed them as a child. His mother, Clara Muhammad, was a strong, nurturing woman who schooled Wallace and many other children from the Muslim community in what became known as Muhammad's University of Islam. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad would later hire Arabic instructors who would unlock his son's understanding of universal Islam.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad first he hired a Palestinian teacher to teach us Arabic. Later he hired an African-American who was half Moroccan and half African-American to teach us Arabic. And finally, he got a professor by the name of Jamil Diab to teach us Arabic. And he was allowed, strangely, to also, while teaching Arabic, to introduce some of the history of Islam as seen through the eyes of outsiders. That put myself and other of our students who were in our class there, put us in a good situation to begin reading the Quran in the original language of Quran in Arabic.
By the mid-late 1950s, Wallace had become an influential member in the Nation of Islam under the leadership of his father, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The organization's reach had spread to cities and towns across America. Elijah Muhammad selected Wallace as minister in Philadelphia, and working together with other Nation of Islam ministers and followers, they pressed forward with changing the mindset and conditions of Black people in America.
There is no one that needs help as great as the American so-called Negro.
As the Nation of Islam continued to grow, so did Wallace's knowledge and understanding of al-Islam, and he was being noticed.
I first met him in 1958. He was on a tour of the East Coast, he and Malcolm. And during this tour, Minister Malcolm used to open the meeting up for Minister Wallace Muhammad, who was the main speaker. And listening to him and getting a feel for what he was saying, he was different from any other minister, deeper and more religious. And he dealt more with the message of Quran.
As Wallace continued studying Arabic and the Quran, his relationship with some Nation of Islam members, including his father, would become strained. Wallace would eventually be suspended from the organization. With a family to support, he worked to make ends meet, while never giving up his relentless study of al-Islam. One of Wallace's Islamic mentors and friends was Dr. Ahmed Sakr.
I was in touch with his father. He invited us when we established the MSA of US and Canada, and invited us to his house. And we went there to Elijah Muhammad. We had dinner with him and his family. And Imam Warzidi Muhammad was there. And he told me that he was attending classes with Dr. Jamil Diab in Chicago, and he left to Arizona to build a masjid there. So can I come to you? So he started coming every week to me.
There were people following Imam Muhammad around making tapes about what he was teaching, but it was just ahead of his time.
Despite his rising doubts about the Nation of Islam's theology, Wallace understood that his father's message of freedom, justice, and equality was still very powerful, and much needed in the Black communities of America.
Minister Wallace Muhammad's idea was that as long as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was the leader, he felt that he should not interfere with his leadership. It wasn't his time. His time would come.
For centuries, Islamic education has been an integral part of the history of the African American experience. Dating back to the brutal system of slavery, Muslims had distinguished themselves in the continuous struggle for literacy and education. The practice and progression of an Islamic education philosophy in the African American experience has shown a distinct development over the years, which has continued into the 21st century. And the primary reason for this growth and development has been the Muslim community that arose from the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam.
I said, get out of that slavery teaching. That's the white man's teaching to keep you blind, deaf, and dumb to the knowledge of God.
In 1933, the state of education
the screening of these two key Muslim figures was because we wanted to connect it back to the place where we live. So how many of you guys heard of Atlantic City or are from Atlantic City? Okay, almost everybody. So we kind of wanted to tie that in because Atlantic City, where we live, also has a lot of history. And we do have Brother Lester with us today. He's going to give you guys a little bit more background on
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good afternoon. when we looked at the history of the Islamic movement in this area, it goes back to the 40s. And one of the pioneers, or one of the people that really helped open up this area for Islam in this area was a brother by the name of Minister Woodrow Love. And Minister Woodrow Love, over the years, in fact, there's a lot of history about Islam in this area that we're just really discovering and coming into. And one of the things is that during those early years of the training, when Minister Malcolm X left prison in 1952, he met with Minister Woodrow Love in Chicago for the 1953 Savior's Day Convention, the annual convention that we would have. And at that time, he talked to him about working with him. And Minister Malcolm asked if he could work with him. And Minister Woodrow Love said, well, I would have to get permission from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So he did. And he said, yes, take him. I think he'll be good brother. He'll be good access to the community. So 1953, so as the convention is closing, Minister Woodrow, who used to be in charge of all the video and audio and for the Nation of Islam at that time, was packing up like we were sitting up here today, packing up and ready to go back to Atlantic City. And so Minister Malcolm said, listen, I'm ready to go. So in 1953, some of the training for Minister Malcolm was done right here in Atlantic City, New Jersey at 419 Madison Avenue, which is in the Uptown area. So he was trained here to be a minister along with others. This is where Atlantic City, New Jersey, during those early years, the 40s and the 50s, was the East Coast headquarters for the Nation of Islam, from my understanding. So you have a lot of history here. One of the other things, and when Minister Malcolm was given the assignment to go to Philadelphia to open up, Atlantic City is number 10. We have the Boston, Massachusetts was number 11, and that's where his half-sister Ella lived at. So he was traveling up along the East Coast, and number 12 was Philadelphia. So he was given the opportunity by Minister Woodrow Love to go to Philadelphia and help open up that temple along with others. It wasn't just him. You had Minister Malcolm, you had Minister Isaiah Kareem, you had Minister George, who was Kamal Majid, who eventually took over Boston. You had sisters, and like one of the brothers who will explain, the sisters who also helped Minister Malcolm along with the others, because it was a team of them that would go across the country and opening up temples. But one of the other things you will quickly mention is Muhammad Ali. So Muhammad Ali spent a lot of time here in Atlantic City. He spent a lot of time in the 60s when he first won the championship, when he came into the community, all the way up until the 90s. And one of the things, I think we had it in here. This, by the way, we just passed it. But there's one of the things that Muhammad Ali would do when he come here in the 90s after boxing, the most important thing that he would do is dawah work. And he would take pamphlets and he would autograph them. And that's what he would give to the people. I think one might be up here. And that's what he would do. And the people would love him. They want his autograph. And he would give the dawah pamphlets in terms of, that would be his way of doing dawah. So we had a rich history of Muslims and the community here in this area. as we close out, because we're running short on time, but we also have here from Chicago, Illinois, a very special guest. I'm glad he's here. This is the grandson of Elijah Muhammad, Amir Muhammad, and he will hopefully, can you come up and just give us a couple minutes before we start running the video?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just a couple before we start the video.
It's an honor.
Yeah. He came all the way from Chicago to help us out. Yeah.
Peace be unto you. Assalamu alaikum. Again, this is Brother Lester's program, and I am a guest. So, Brother Lester, I'm going to ask you, as I did earlier today in our previous session.
Okay.
What are you asking of me here, brother? I want to stay within the confines of your constructs here. So, because I mean, I can share much.
But just share, because we're going to go to the video. This is the pamphlets that Muhammad Ali would sign. These are pamphlets that he would sign and give to people wherever he was at. So
Okay.
one question.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about your mother's interaction with as part of that team that would help open up temples along with Minister, the team of people that would help open up the temples. And then we're going to go to the
So it is widely spread in public domain that Minister Malcolm Shabazz El-Hajj established so many mosques all by himself. The brother's nodding his head. May I share with you some exact truth? Nothing in the Nation of Islam at that time was done by a single individual. There was always a team effort. That is how the whole organization existed, in a team effort. And I will tell you how that began and how it ended. The movement from about 1950, 58 minus 4 is 54. From about 1954 to, I know, 1958, that is when that buildup of mosque happened. And there was a team that included my mother. Gee, why did your mother go? Well, my mother's the daughter of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And Brother Malcolm was not a known entity to nobody. So my grandfather sent his daughter, my mother, on the road with Brother Malcolm to establish these mosques and to introduce Brother Malcolm to the people. He would then, of course, there was what was called fishing, where you would go out and reach the people and bring them to the mosque. And when the people were brought in, they were given a talk all together, male and female. Brother Malcolm would lead that. And then when they broke off into segments where you'd have brothers and sisters, my mother was the one that oriented the sisters, Minister Malcolm oriented the brothers. And that went on for about 4.5 years. And I'm gonna tell you how it ended. It ended with my mother getting pregnant with me. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad worked all of his children. There was no such thing as privilege. Everybody went to work. Even I worked for my grandfather, and it was a joy every moment of it. I loved it. It taught me how to do for self. It taught me how to do everything that I need to do as a young man. I worked for him from the time I was 11 until he passed in 75. But anyway, my mother was by Malcolm's side, and as a team, there were a team of people. It wasn't just my mother and Malcolm. There were other believers involved, as Brother Lester said, that established those mosques. And there was also another individual that took my mother's place, my Aunt Ethel. My Aunt Ethel, Sister Lottie, my mother's sister. My mother was the captain of the sisters. There was hierarchy, there was captains and lieutenants and such. But my mother was the captain of the sisters before she had to make this trip to establish the mosque with the team and Brother Malcolm. My Aunt Ethel, and this is my recollection of what I've been told, was the captain of the sisters. You'll see my Aunt Ethel in that picture with her standing like this, and she has all the beautiful sisters behind her beautiful face in that picture, and they all in the white hair, the white uniforms. So, well, her tenure as captain also ended because she became pregnant with my dear cousin, Aletha. So that's the truth as I know about it. And I want to share with you also, I don't want to take a lot of time, is that women in this community, in the building of the nation, were very integral. And without the women's support, there would be no nation today, and I'll tell you why. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was, let me make a short story. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was introduced to Farad Muhammad, or W.D. Farad of the many names that he held at that time, was introduced to him by my grandmother, Clara Muhammad, or Clara Pooh Evans at the time. Was introduced to Farad Muhammad. She said, husband, you have to come and hear what this man is talking about. He heard what that man is talking about. He was done. He heard what he needed to hear, because during that time, if you remember Tulsa, do anybody understand here what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma back in 1920? It was a town that came together that was of African-American people, because that was a time of segregation. People that didn't look like us, didn't want to touch our money, didn't want to do business with us, didn't want us to go to their washroom, didn't want to eat with us. No problem. We had to do this. We had to unite. And Tulsa, Oklahoma was a united effort. Well, they stumbled. They had land, they had land, they had agriculture, banks, real estate, and they discovered oil. Oh, but the people in the next town wasn't having that. We can't have these folks being that successful. So what ended up happening? There was a ground assault. That ground assault was unsuccessful. And then airplanes came in and bombed the place. Okay, where did those airplanes come from? Who had airplanes back in the day? That plentiful one with bombs on them. Come on, folks, participate. Who? Thank you. Alhamdulillah. Or praise God, as they say. The U.S. government, they came in and destroyed that town, destroyed that effort. So with that, the sustaining of this Nation of Islam, when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and all the brothers were put in prison for not going to World War II, being conscientious objectors, many of which were above the age of that. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was 42. He's 45 years old. And I think the age limit was 40 at that time. He was too old to go to World War II, but they took him to jail anyway, because he was leading all these folks and had these radicals and and people were afraid of what they were doing. Look, all right, let's put them all in jail. My dad went with him. He was, I think my dad at the time was in his teens, 19 or 20. He was 18, so he went. And he was in prison with my grandfather and the 94 other people that went to jail during that time, that were all picked off the streets throughout the United States and put in prison. During that time, and I'll stop with this, the nation was held together by the sisters. My grandmother, Clara Muhammad, and the sisters held it together. And also while in prison, some people say, oh, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught shirk. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad could not have a Quran when he was in prison. The warden said that book is not coming in this prison. Well, my grandmother and the sisters did a beautiful thing. They hand wrote all 114 chapters of Quran, and my grandmother delivered it piece by piece when she went to visit her husband. And that is how the Quran got in the prison system. And therefore, and that is when, give me that word again, I keep forgetting, brother. Chaplaincy, thank you, sir. That is where Muslim chaplaincy started with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He says, I'm going to make lemonade out of these lemons. He says, I'm going to be in here these next few years. I'm going to convert some folks, and we're going to talk about Islam from the Quran. And that's why he had the Quran, his wife, for lack of a better word, smuggle the Quran into prison, because they wasn't having it. So I'm going to leave you with that so that we can keep this project moving. Thank you so much.
Let's go.
We also have from New Freedom's Word. He will be live streaming. Are you live streaming? Okay, so let's start. You wanna we also have popcorn and some snacks outside if you guys would like to have some. Okay, yes. Do you want me to put that down?
No matter which way you turn, there is destiny. It was destiny that my father and Cassius Clay would meet. 3 short years that they would spend in their lives, that destiny created for them. That was their blood brotherhood.
We are no longer slaves. White people no longer own us.
Cassius destroyed that image the other night when he knocked out Sonny Liston.
Malcolm came to this young man and he gave him the power that he needed to speak.
Malcolm and Muhammad. They're very close. They were brothers. I was there to witness it.
Did your brother like being around Malcolm?
Love. I did too. He had an air about him. It was just divine. The electricity that came from his body was sacred. All the true people like that in the world.
Why do you think they stopped being friends?
Well,
Destiny can take your best friend as an instrument to cause you harm and your worst enemy to do you good. Right? Judas betrayed Jesus. Malcolm X betrayed Elijah Muhammad. Destiny can take your best friend as an instrument to do you harm and your worst enemy to do you good.
It's time for you and me to stand up for ourselves. It is time for you and me to see for ourselves. And it is time for you and me to fight for ourselves.
You unloved. That's what it is to be black in a white supremacist world. You are unloved, uncared for, untended to, and viewed less beautiful, less moral, less intelligent, and you are told to always be scared. Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, no way. Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali were the two most freest of black men in the 20th century. On the other hand, you know, there's a cross to bear. It's a tremendous cost of being a free and loving person.
It was unusual for a black person to think of themselves as, quote, pretty.
Half of the world should be pretty like me. I'm the king of the ring.
Athletes were expected to be humble. And then you had the Louisville lip.
Tenacity and dignity and like pride and so what you don't like me, so what?
What do I act like I'm to you? Do I act like I'm I don't know, Cassius. You're just like you say, you're the greatest.
And a lot of people, even a lot of black people, weren't comfortable with this. They called him a loudmouth.
I don't have to be what you want me to be.
It was a moment of transition. And Ali really is at the forefront of this transition, as is Malcolm.
I'm free to be what I want to be and think what I want to think.
They're changing the way the world saw the black man.
How could so few white people rule so many black people?
Martin Luther King, whose school of thought I come out of, spoke to who we must become. Malcolm spoke to who we were and who put us there.
These homegrown Negro American Muslims are the most powerful of the black supremacist groups.
Mike Wallace had, of course, done this television program about the nation called The Hate That Hate Produced.
4 or 5 times a year, the Muslims assemble in one of America's major cities to hear their leader, Elijah Muhammad, founder and spiritual leader of the group.
The Christian religion has failed.
But of even more interest to New Yorkers is Malcolm X, the Muslims' New York minister.
The black man by nature is divine.
Now, does this mean that the white man by nature is evil?
By nature, he is other than divine.
This critique of whiteness was very powerful because prior to this time, you had to say something like that in private. You certainly couldn't call white people devils, not out loud.
By nature, he is evil.
He is a remarkable man, a man who, by his own admission, was once a procurer and dope peddler. But now he's a changed man. He will not smoke or drink. His life changed for him when the Muslim faith taught him no longer to be ashamed of being a black man.
You know, you have what you call a reference point. Malcolm's father was a solid reference, of course his mother too. Earl, his father, and Louise, his mother, were followers of the Marcus Garvey movement.
My father's organization sought to link Africans in Africa, in the Caribbean, in the United States. My father felt that instead of Africans being servile, they must become self-reliant.
There is no Malcolm X without Garvey. Garvey used to say, the Negro is not afraid.
There's no more significant influence you could have for a young black boy is to be in the company of a father who was so well versed and had an audience in his hand, you know, as both a minister, a preacher, and a representative of the whole Garvey movement.
Malcolm's father was Malcolm's hero. But the problem was, there were white supremacists who wanted to silence Earl Little.
Malcolm's just 6 years of age when his father is killed in 1931.
It was horrific what they did to him. He was knocked over the head, dragged to the trolley track so that the oncoming train would roll over him.
For the first 5 or 6 years of his life, he had a kind of a first-hand opportunity to capture the majesty of his father's voice. Over the years, he would certainly return to those moments of the whole Garvey movement.
Out of the organization came people like Elijah Muhammad, who went on to form the Nation of Islam. Elijah Muhammad took what he had learned, the concept of having an economic base, the discipline, and the militaristic attire, and put it in the religious setting of the black Muslims.
Not long before the age of 21, Malcolm X ran away from school and went to Harlem. And there, he ran numbers, sold bootleg whiskey, procured business for prostitutes, used and pushed dope. In the late 40s, Malcolm X pulled a robbery in Boston, was caught and sent to prison.
He served time for robbery in the Michigan and Massachusetts State Penitentiary.
early on. He had a kind of inquisitiveness. You know, like most restless folk, you can end up expressing it in a gangster-like way. You're trying to conquer, be in control.
Inside the prison walls, he's like a caged tiger, absorbing information, cultivating his intelligence, reading. That's his indoctrination. That's the beginning. So once he's out, in 1952, he goes back to Michigan and he really involves himself in the nation.
I'm real happy and thankful to Allah for the energy and for the spirit that He has put in Minister Malcolm.
And so much so, by 1954, he's a national spokesperson.
My name is Rahman Ali. I'm proud and happy to say I'm the only brother of Muhammad Ali. He's gone to paradise. The next time I see my brother be in heaven, I'm going to be in heaven together. As small children growing up, he always told me, I'm going to be the most famous man in the whole world. As a small child, he said, he was 10, 11, 12, 13, he did exactly what he said he would do.
The pink house right there is Muhammad Ali. Cassius Clay, but we called him Gigi. We all went to the same elementary school, junior high school, and senior high school. Central High School is the only black school in the city of Louisville. But we didn't have none of the major amenities that white schools had. They didn't put a track and football field at Central High School until the integrated school.
Cassius Clay Sr. was Southern Baptist. Cassius Clay Jr. was Southern Baptist, and they went to the church. He told me one time he went down on Louisville, he went outside a little church. They were singing the same hymns that they were singing in his church. What a friend we have in Jesus. And out comes the minister, say, hey boy, get out of here. He said, something's wrong. They're singing the same hymns we are. Now why do I have to leave? Because I'm black.
Segregation was outrageous. You went to the bus, they said colored section. You knew in the department stores you couldn't try on clothes. They'll take your money, but you gotta buy that suit and hope it fits. You ain't gonna put it on.
Cassius Clay was born in 1942. Emmett Till was born in 1941.
Money, Mississippi, a story that shocked the entire United States.
The Emmett Till story was a searing event to the man who's going to become Muhammad Ali.
Emmett Till, 14, was kidnapped and killed allegedly for wolf whistling at the wife of accused Roy Bryant. Bryant and his half-brother, J.W. Milam, were acquitted by this jury.
He looked at Emmett Till's mutilated face in the pages of Jet magazine. He's heard the horrific stories from his father about the lynchings that continue to happen.
My father was always very sensitive to oppression. And his father taught him, like any other black man will do today, how to survive. And my grandmother would say, this really bothered your father. He wanted to be great. But this is darkness for a child.
I met Malcolm in Temple number 7 restaurant. When Malcolm came in, a giant. Malcolm, a giant. Shook his hand. The power of his hand, it felt like God.
I first met Malcolm in person in about 1959, 1960. He walked down the hallway and shake everybody's hand. My cousin would say, go ahead and ask him a question if you get a chance. And say, no. I was so terrified.
On Sunday, in Temple number 7, Malcolm taught 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 hours, non-stop.
The man that kidnapped us and brought us here, who made a slave out of us, who hung us on trees. I don't have to tell you which man.
I had never heard anyone talk about attacks on the mind with the clarity that he did. Movies, the school textbooks, the television programs, all of this was a constant psychological attacks.
He even calls us boy. Don't care how big you get, he calls you boy.
Malcolm made you believe you couldn't die. And when you're a young man and you get a teaching like that, that's what you need.
Rome welcomes the Summer Games of the 17th Olympiad.
In 1960, Cassius Clay is 18 years old. He's young, he's wide-eyed, goes to the Rome Olympics.
Cassius Clay, the winner for the USA.
And even then, he had that jaw-dropping charisma. He becomes virtually the mayor of the Olympic Village.
First time I really saw him up close, he was sitting on the steps in the Olympic Village. And he's raving. You know, he's got the medal and he's holding it up. Look at me, look who I am, look how pretty I am. I'm gonna be the heavyweight champion of the world. They don't understand a freaking word he's saying, but I noticed something. Every time the athlete was a woman, they stopped and turned and looked back at him. I said, this guy's gonna have something. I don't know what, but it's gonna be something.
Tell me how you came to get such a Roman name as that.
Well, as I understand, I'm Cassius Marcellus Clay VI, and my great-great-grandfather was a Kentucky slave, and he was named after some great Kentuckian. Where he was from, or where it was all originated, I couldn't tell you, but since I've reached a little fame in boxing, most people want to know where am I from and where did I get that name, but really I haven't really checked on it.
He could not be more proud to represent America. This was his greatest honor. And one of the things that he recognizes there is that there's no Jim Crow signs. He enjoys a freedom of movement he's never experienced before. This is not like Louisville, Kentucky.
I represent to you not a puppet, yes sir, but I represent to you God in person. Yes sir! Yes sir!
In the most holy name of Almighty God Allah, the true and living God, the only God, we forever thank him for his divine messenger and only messenger, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Why do you have any faith in white people? Tell me that.
The Messengers program is a discipline that we all need and never had. No alcohol, no drugs, no tobacco, no pork. Neat, clean, organized. I'm Melchizedek, Supreme Shabazz Allah, known as the Universal High Priest of the Nation of Islam on Earth and in the universe. I'm 84 years old. Very peaceful man. You understand what I'm trying to say? But it's nothing for me to take the lights out. Because you're trained that way. Very peaceful, very respectful, never the aggressor, but deadly. The brother who you think is humble, meek, and insecure, that brother is cold as ice when it comes to the teachings.
You say we hate white people? We don't hate anybody. We love our own people so much they think we hate the ones who are inflicting injustice against them.
This is WHAS in Louisville, Kentucky. And our guest tonight, Louisville's Cassius Clay, the 4th-ranked world heavyweight. Hello.
Do you think that you are as good a boxer as Joe Louis was?
I'm not as good, but better. I'm more classier, I'm faster, and I talk more.
Who wins a gold medal at the Rome Olympics? He's a hero. But when he gets back to Louisville, he finds Louisville's the same.
I just got in from Rome, and I want to turn professional.
The standard understanding is that black athletes will be deferential on civil rights. They will be seen and not heard.
We people who are darker than blue, are we gonna stand around this town and let what others say come true?
He wins the Olympics, and he's also overseas where things aren't segregated, comes back home thinking being the champion would change things, but it didn't.
This ain't no time for segregating.
Cassius Clay goes into a diner. A white man at the counter says, "We don't serve your kind, boy." And there he is with his Olympic jacket, his gold medal. He's humiliated. In that moment, he rejects America. He rips the medal off, tosses it into the river.
We people who are darker than blue.
That disappointment thinking, okay, I've done this for America, I'm the champ, I'm everything, but I'm still in a segregated world. And I think that got him. That woke us all up, to tell the truth.
I'm Gordon B. Davidson, attorney for the Louisville Sponsoring Group, owner of Cassius Clay, and the hired hand to keep the group and Cassius Clay together.
He's now of interest to certain white residents of Louisville who view him as a commodity, okay, something that can be marketed.
I'm W.L. Lyons Brown, chairman of the board of Brown Forman Distillers Corporation.
A group of very wealthy businessmen formed the Louisville Sponsoring Group to manage his boxing career.
J.D. Stetson Coleman,
Worth Bingham, assistant publisher.
And he's controlled by these 11 rich Louisville guys.
I'm one of the founders of the group, Cassius Clay.
And talking to them, you would kind of have a sense that they were talking about one of their racehorses. He was a really good boy.
Cassius goes to Miami to train under Angelo Dundee, one of the best trainers in the business.
And then he met a man by the name of Abdul Rahman, Captain Sam.
My father was the captain of the Miami Mosque. This was the area of the mosque at that particular time. He's out pushing the Muhammad Speaks newspaper. He hears a guy from across the street yell out, "Why are we called Negroes? Why are we deaf, dumb, and blind? Why is everybody making progress and we're so far behind?" My dad said, "Hey man, I see you hip to the teachings." "Yeah man, I'm Cassius Clay." Right away, they had an automatic chemistry.
There's no sense for most of America that Cassius Clay has a secret, that he's leading a double life.
In 1959, Cassius Clay is in Chicago for an amateur boxing exhibition. He had some free time, he's out on the street, and he sees members of the Nation of Islam. And one of them hands him a record. A White Man's Heaven
is a Black Man's Hell by Louis X, eventually known as Louis Farrakhan, at one time known as Calypso Gene the Charmer.
Before we came to America, we were living in the East. By the Nile River, we were living.
So Cassius takes this record back to Louisville with him, and he plays it over and over and over again.
Oh, my friend, it's easy to tell. White man heaven, black man hell.
When he was training at the 5th Street Gym in Miami, I saw some changing faces in the camp. Sam Saxon, Captain Sam, is with him. And as far as Angelo Dundee knows, he's a boyhood pal who he lets hang around the gym.
I just got through with the Henry Cooper fight.
Every day they would get together. He would teach Cassius Clay about Islam and, bring the teachers to him.
The Nation of Islam began to provide Clay a whole language of Black excellence and Black supreme achievement.
Captain Sam starts to mentor Cassius Clay
Here is what I am teaching.
in the career of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad,
And these Negro leaders,
in the emerging supernova of Malcolm X. Cassius becomes closer to the Nation of Islam. He doesn't join the nation, but he's interested.
Do you think your brother could have become the greatest without his faith?
No, sir. The faith of Islam give us confidence. God, oh my God is decent. God is powerful. God is righteous. Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X gave us confidence to be great.
In June, Cassius and his brother, they were in their home in Louisville. And they got a call from Captain Sam. The Nation of Islam was holding a big rally in Detroit.
Cassius and Rudy could not be more excited. They've never seen the messenger in person. Captain Sam drives from Miami to Louisville, picks up the Clay brothers, and they go to Detroit. But before they go into Olympia Stadium, Sam takes them into a diner. And in that diner is Malcolm X.
There's Malcolm X sitting at a table, like he would always sit at a table, facing the door, almost like kind of an Old West cowboy movie. Around Malcolm's table are guards. Cassius is starstruck. Rarely is Cassius starstruck.
He acted as if I was supposed to know who he was. I had never even heard of him. Ours were two entirely different worlds. In fact, Elijah Muhammad instructed us Muslims against all forms of sports. That's funny. My father didn't know who he was, but he just went along with, that sense of importance. If this man thinks he is famous, then I'm going to go along with him. Of course, I know you're great.
Malcolm X was a genius. He spoke the truth about how black folks were mistreated in America. When in hate, it was truth.
Rudy and Cassius, they go into Olympia Stadium. And what do they see? They see an army of black men, proud black men, dressed in black suits, bow ties. And there's a sense of order, there's a sense of discipline.
before the white man, we had great civilization just as powerful than what the white man has put on the earth.
And the message that Cassius hears that day is separation or death.
Separation or death. We don't want no integration. We want separation. We don't want nothing but the freedom to own some of this earth that we control our.
This analysis of the white man being the devil was really attractive to people who had experienced hell at the hands of white people.
And what good is Christianity to you and I if the religion will not defend us against lynching? They say they are followers of Jesus. They're followers of the devil.
Now and then, I heard how Cassius showed up in Muslim mosques and restaurants in various cities. And if I happened to be speaking anywhere within reasonable distance of wherever Cassius was, he would be present.
In March of 1963, Cassius is in New York for the fight against Doug Jones. Who's there? Malcolm has taken a special interest in this young heavyweight.
Clay, winner by unanimous decision.
The next day, Cassius Clay seen out in public wearing the dark suit, the white shirt, the black bow tie. And he gives an interview to the New York Post. He was asked about why he didn't join civil rights marches. He says that I don't believe in nonviolence, and that I believe in an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. It's very clear what happened. He's in Harlem. He was spending time with Malcolm.
Malcolm brought Muhammad Ali to the temple and introduced Muhammad Ali to us.
They had this kind of student-teacher relationship. The age difference, 22-year-old Adonis, and here's Malcolm coming in, a little bit older, understanding of the world that's going to be important to Muhammad Ali.
You can't be around Malcolm and not learn. Malcolm shared the wisdom.
If the government can't defend us, what should we do? Go find out who bombed the church in Birmingham, Alabama. If they can't find out, then let us go find out. And when we find, I don't want to hear that. And when we find out who it was who murdered our little female babies, then the law of justice is that a murderer should be murdered.
When Cassius Clay meets Malcolm X, he has no idea Malcolm is moving in a new political direction. Malcolm believes that the Nation of Islam has the potential to make a much bigger difference if it joins the front lines.
Don't you be fooled by these Uncle Tom Negro preachers. When a dog attacks you, you get that dog, two-legged dog or four-legged dog.
He did not advocate violence, he advocated self-defense.
We're not trying to start anything. Don't start no shit, won't be none started. But if you come for us, be prepared to fight, because we're not embracing this Martin Luther King philosophy.
But Elijah has told him to stand down. In a number of Elijah's letters to Malcolm, he reminds him, do not say anything that you have not heard me say.
Elijah said, the judgment of white America will come at the hands of God. For Malcolm, this did not align with his desire to see justice more immediately.
As long as this so-called civil rights struggle is led, and when I say led, I use led in quotes, actually contained by Uncle Tom Negro leaders, then the white power structure isn't worried at all. They're only worried when they know that the masses of black people are ready to explode, and in exploding it will destroy some of the furniture in their house.
My father loved his fearlessness, and he did pattern a lot of his presentation based on how Malcolm presented himself.
You start to see some of the early developing tension between the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X.
Elijah Muhammad was not charismatic in the way that Malcolm was charismatic.
Because you don't like the idea of white people shooting black people down, do you? And you're ready to do something about it, aren't you? We know you are.
The rank and file of the Nation of Islam loved Malcolm. For many people, he was their most direct experience and encounter with the teachings of Elijah Muhammad.
Once Malcolm began to pursue things like an intellectual, I think he reached a point where his interest and the interest of the nation diverged. And of course, this leads to more tension, more conflict.
I liked him. Some contagious quality about him made him one of the very few people I ever invited to my home.
They would talk. They probably talked on the phone, but it's all secretive. But the Louisville sponsoring group was starting to pick up what was going on.
They began to realize that Cassius was affiliated with the Muslims, that they began to step back.
And suddenly in Cassius Clay's rhetoric, we start to hear the echo of Malcolm X.
July 1963, Chicago. Bruce Hills, a reporter for the Chicago Sun-Times, is camped outside of the University of Islam, which is the Nation of Islam's school. Somehow, he learns that there's a tomato red Cadillac parked behind the University of Islam.
Cassius and Rudy and a few others come out.
Bruce Hills gets excited. His eyes light up. And he starts following Cassius's car. Bruce gets Cassius to roll down the window.
He sees Cassius has a star and crescent pin on. What's going on? Are you a member of the Nation of Islam?
And at first Cassius Clay says no. And then he says,
well, so what if I am? It's a great organization. And it continues until Rudy turns onto the freeway out of Chicago.
Now, the story published by Bruce Hills, it doesn't quite gain momentum yet in the press. But it's obvious that he has a relationship with the Nation of Islam.
The fact that Cassius Clay was somehow connected to this group made a lot of white people nervous.
And the FBI says the movement is a potential threat to the internal security of the United States.
J. Edgar Hoover was the director of the FBI, working for the Kennedy administration. Hoover and the FBI carried out a counterintelligence program designed to cut the legs out from Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X.
Not just passive surveillance, but active infiltration designed to undermine the impact that the Nation of Islam was having, to neutralize the impact that Malcolm was having.
Every day now, they're planning how to stop Elijah and his followers. But I say, I think you're a little late.
We are confronted primarily with a moral issue. It is as old as the scriptures and is as clear as the American Constitution. The heart of the question is whether all Americans are to be afforded equal rights and equal opportunities, whether we are going to treat our fellow Americans as we want to be treated.
From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Down this avenue of sadness, they bring President John F. Kennedy, martyred hero, to lie in state under the great dome of the Capitol.
When Kennedy died, Elijah Muhammad, he instructed all the temples to leave it to him to express the feelings of the nation about the death of the president.
Elijah Muhammad, from his home in Phoenix, telephoned the newspaper ordering that a statement be placed on page 1. The statement reads, "We with the world are very shocked at the assassination of our president."
I have to respect what the messenger said. No statement should be made. I got that. But me, if you're teaching the white man the devil, who the hell is Kennedy? As far as I'm concerned, he didn't do a damn thing for me. I still got to provide for myself. He ain't put no money in my pocket. But I have to go with my father, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. He did make it plain, don't make no statements.
In spite of the messengers instructing Malcolm spoke.
Malcolm X, second in command of the Black Muslim movement, expressed joy at the assassination of President Kennedy at a Manhattan rally last Sunday. Malcolm said that the killing of the president was an instance of the chickens coming home to roost. He added, and we quote, "Being an old farm boy myself, chickens coming home to roost never make me sad, they always make me glad." In Chicago today, Elijah Muhammad, the leader of the anti-white Muslim movement, suspended Malcolm X and disavowed his statement.
He gave Elijah Muhammad a socially acceptable excuse for silencing Malcolm.
He's not allowed to preach. He's not allowed to appear at his mosque in Harlem. And in fact, the members of that mosque, they're not allowed to be associated with Malcolm either.
This was a big breach in his life. He regarded Elijah Muhammad as his personal savior. His feelings were unquestionably deep, devout.
I want to apologize to you for having let you down, for the mistakes that I've made, especially during the past year. And above all else, I'm praying to Allah for mercy and forgiveness in your heart.
He is torn here between this idea that Elijah Muhammad is like his father and the fact that his father got his hand around Malcolm's throat.
The growing rift was going to be a big problem for, among other people, Muhammad Ali.
If Sonny lives to whoop me, I'll kiss his feet in the rain. Tell him he's the greatest and catch the next jet out of the country. That's what I think about Sonny Liston.
You have in Liston and Ali a thug on one side and a loudmouth on the other side.
You can look at me, I'm loaded with confidence. I can't beat me. I have 180 amateur fights, 22 professional fights, and I'm pretty as a girl.
People were scared to death of Liston. Sonny Liston was a boxer who came out of the penitentiary, who worked for organized crime as a leg breaker. You owe some money, you get a visit from Sonny.
He'll fall an 8 to prove that I'm great. And if he keeps talking jive, I'm gonna cut it to 5.
Cassius, because of what he was focused on, training for that major fight, I don't think he was attuned to all of the internal dynamics in the Nation of Islam.
On January 15th, 1964, Malcolm is gonna head south. He's going to Miami with his family to visit Cassius Clay. So in advance of the trip, he calls Cassius, and Cassius responds great, he's enthusiastic, he's excited to see him. We know this call took place between Malcolm and Cassius because a New York FBI agent immediately called the field office in Miami and provided a directive. Malcolm is arriving on this specific flight. Cassius Clay is going to be there. Make sure you tail their car.
Miami was the only place where we had gone as a family together on a vacation and to be in someone else's home. That family photo of my mother and my 2 elder sisters, Attila and Kabila, and I'm sitting on Muhammad Ali's lap. For my father to take his wife and his babies and go to his home, it meant that my father trusted him 100%.
My dad considered him to be a friend. He considered him to be family, really. And Malcolm was one of those few people that he met that he could trust.
Malcolm was in need of allies. He had become isolated in the movement. Cassius could be the big fish. I think that is very possibly part of Malcolm's calculation.
You can't dismiss the possibility that he had those particular motives, that it could be self-serving. Somebody can, I can use and utilize because of his growing influentiality, that he could help me too.
Malcolm sends these pictures to 2 black newspapers. Malcolm wants to remind Elijah Muhammad that Cassius Clay has the ability to bring more members into the movement, and they're his closest brothers.
Malcolm says to Elijah Muhammad, what would it be like if for Savior's Day celebration, which was a day after the fight, if I show up with Cassius Clay?
I want to come back, honorable messenger, and I have someone who can help our cause.
About a week before the fight, Malcolm X shows up. Malcolm goes to a couple of workouts in camp.
He had been asked to leave and go home, that he could come back for the fight. The real emphasis at that point was whether or not Cassius Clay was a member of the Nation of Islam.
They didn't want some Muslim being the heavyweight champion, so they basically threatened him. Cassius was about to pack up the bus to leave town since they said they were canceling the fight. The promoters found out he was leaving. They came back and said, hey, you just don't tell nobody you're a Muslim, we won't say nothing.
February 25th, 1964. Heavyweight championship of the world. Malcolm has come back to Miami.
Miami, Florida, where the torch of friendship signifies a welcome to good people of all races and creeds.
Now remember, Miami is a segregated city, and he has to stay at a hotel that is only for black people.
From the moment you drive up to the main entrance of the Hampton House, your welcome is assured. A home away from home to thousands of visitors from states of the United States and many foreign lands who seek the fabulous Florida sunshine.
If you like to lose your money, then be a fool and bet on Sonny. But if you want to have a good day, then put it on Clay.
I always thought Sonny Liston was really afraid of only one thing, and that was a crazy man. He'd come out of the system and he'd spent time in jail. He had seen people go nuts. Cassius used that, harassing him, making fun of him. At the weigh-in, he went nuts, tried to get at Sonny Liston. A crazy man who had nothing to lose could really hurt you.
We're almost all set to go for that World Heavyweight Championship fight. The puncher, champion Sonny Liston. The boxer, challenger Cassius Clay.
Just before the fight, Cassius is nervous. This is a big fight. He's going to fight Sonny Liston, who is a bad man. Suddenly, Malcolm X shows up in the locker room.
I prayed and talked to my brother. Gave my brother some instructions. My brother came out and was very confident.
Malcolm encouraged him to believe that he had to bring with him into that ring the power of God, if not God himself.
We're set for an exciting night here in Convention Hall, Miami Beach.
You know, with the support of your brother, who believes just as deeply as you do, you can pray to God to give you the will to do what you must.
Now the questions will be answered. If it goes past the first round, there will be surprises already.
Malcolm got a seat, sitting in row 7, seat 7. This is prophecy coming to truth.
And here they come. Clay just laughs at him, backs away, bobbing, weaving. Clay roll left and right to play. The two couple. Liston bleeding under both eyes. The bell sounds for the 5th round, and he is having trouble with his eyes. One of his trainers yelled there's something in Liston's gloves. Clay is blinking, said he can't see. Here's Liston crouching, hitting to the body, and Clay keeps blinking like he doesn't see Liston, and that will be fatal.
But his great body and head movement kept him from Liston's punches. Round 5 saw Cassius come back on the attack. All through this fight, Cassius has gripped that left hand into Sonny Liston's face. And here in the 6th round, Clay has taken control of the fight. friends listen and move very wearily to his corner as we come up to round 7. Wait a minute! Sonny Liston's got time! The winner and the new heavyweight champion of the world is Cassius Clay!
Every time I watch it, I still get goosebumps.
Pandemonium has broken loose.
When he goes around the ring and he points everybody out, I told you, I told you.
I told you I was the greatest. I proved it.
That moment, it'll stick with you the rest of your life. I shook up the world.
I shook up the world.
He said he was the greatest. All of the odds were against him. He upset the odds makers. He won. He became victorious. He became the champ. And the people who understand psychology and the effect that the psychological effect that the image of one's hero has upon the person himself, they knew that as soon as if people began to identify with Cassius and the type of image he was creating, they were going to have trouble out of these Negroes, because they'd have Negroes walking around the street saying, "I'm the greatest."
Cassius Clay, I am something to fight the back of Cassius Clay! Who's the greatest fighter in the game?
They leave the convention center. A small group of people, Rudy, Cassius, Malcolm X, Jim Brown, the great football player at the time, Sam Cooke, the unbelievable recording artist who was a good friend of Cassius, and they come here.
I'm your mama, I'm your daddy, I'm that nigga in the
To the Hampton House. Cassius and Rudy sit back here on these very stools.
Cassius Clay, the champion. Eating a bowl of ice cream. That was his idea of a big celebration, was a bowl of ice cream.
One of the happiest times in my life. Everybody celebrated the victory.
Now it's in this moment that they all say, well, we believed in you, but it was Malcolm who believed in him. And that means something. It's with gratitude that he celebrates with Malcolm. It's getting late. And the story goes that Malcolm, Cassius Clay, Rudy, Jim Brown, and maybe a few others.
They go to Malcolm X's room. It's time to talk serious now. Now Malcolm X is saying, you know, this Louisville lip, it's time to end that. You've got the title. You've got the pulpit. Now you got to start talking right.
We weren't in the room. We don't have a recording of those conversations. All we know is what happens next.
He was able, by confessing Allah is God and Muhammad is his messenger, that he whipped a much tougher man than he. The enemy wanted him to come out all blasted. They had said that he would, Liston would tear up that pretty face of yours. But Allah and myself said no.
And do you think that Cassius, as being a black Muslim, has had anything to do with this victory?
Well, I haven't heard him say he was a black Muslim. I have heard him say that he believes in the religion of Islam.
About a week after the fight between Clay and Liston, they go to the United Nations.
Malcolm X, I want to talk with you briefly about your affiliation with Cassius. How long have you known him?
About 3 years.
And have you been advising him as far as his religious affiliations are concerned?
Well, no, I don't give advice to anyone. He's my brother and my friend. I express what I know and understand around him.
And Malcolm X introduces him to black diplomats from all over Africa.
My buddy. Yes, sir.
And this is where Malcolm reminds him, you are not what you were before. Now, you are someone who is looked up to all over the world.
Do you plan to visit Nigeria on your trip?
Sir, that's one of my main stops, Africa.
Malcolm wanted to play on a larger stage.
He was going to take the race situation and internationalize it. Take it to the UN. The United States was pushing itself as the leader of the free world. the supporter of human rights. And Brother Malcolm was out there saying, hey, y'all, this is simply not happening. Malcolm knew that this would be something that would compel the federal government to move.
Cassius is in a better position than anyone else to restore a sense of racial pride to not only our people in this country, but all over the world.
Over the course of the week, Malcolm and Cassius look like they've never been closer. They go to Times Square, and they go and they watch the fight of Clay defeating Liston. They come out of the theater. What do you see? A crowd, hundreds of people surrounding them. Reporters are asking Malcolm questions about whether or not the champ is going to be in his movement. There are all these questions about what's going to happen next. There's an FBI agent in Chicago who is requesting continued surveillance of Elijah Muhammad's mansion. And this agent learns that Elijah Muhammad has had phone conversations with the heavyweight champion. On March 6, 1964, Cassius returns to his room back at the Hotel Teresa. He gets a phone call, and it's Elijah Muhammad. And the Supreme Minister tells him, you are not allowed to associate with Malcolm anymore.
I understand that you're headed for Chicago later on this afternoon to meet with Elijah Muhammad?
Yes, sir. Having dinner with him.
Uh-huh. One of the main reasons for you joining the Black Muslims was your friendship with Malcolm X, wasn't it?
No, I was a Muslim 4 years before I met Malcolm X.
Oh, really? He's a friend of yours now, though, isn't he?
Yeah. He was a brother of mine. He's my brother. Whatever you do, he's my brother.
Uh-huh. Now that he's split away from the Muslims...
I don't know about splitting. I'll have to see the higher authority on that. That's one of my main reasons for going, is to find out the real story. I don't believe nothing the press and people write.
Elijah Muhammad says, for all my followers, of all my people who believe in Islam, this the brother Cassius Clay is the most trusting follower that I got. So I named him Muhammad Ali. That's how you get the name.
Cassius Clay. He's given his Muslim name Muhammad Ali. Most people had to wait for years to get that. He became a hero. He appeared on the stage with the messenger. And Malcolm was out in the cold.
Muhammad Ali then is in the crosshairs between two very powerful individuals, two powerful black leaders, Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X. Whether he was aware of that or not.
When forced to choose, for Malcolm, he had no choice but to choose himself. For Cassius, he had to choose his spiritual father. Malcolm was an individual. Elijah was an institution.
Does this split disturb you that has been reported?
Now, what Malcolm X does is his business. He's one man.
Your leader is Elijah Muhammad.
Yes, sir.
The messenger was our father, a father we never had and always wanted. He was like the blood in our vein. It's no Melchizedek without the messenger's teachings. Take these teachings, I'm just another nigga in the street. You understand what I'm trying to say?
It wasn't a simple storyline, and my father was right up in the middle of it as this young man trying to choose. And yeah, there could have been an element of survival.
Cassius Clay is a name no more, is that right?
Yes, sir. It's Muhammad Ali. Muhammad means worthy of all praises, and Ali means most high.
When Malcolm heard this, Malcolm exploded in a car and said, "That's political."
Was anybody special gave you the name?
Yes, sir. My leading teacher, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad.
He knew that in the battle to win the heart of Muhammad Ali, he had lost the fight.
Muhammad. My name is Muhammad. Y'all keep calling me Cassius. I'm tired of telling you. You know, you're intelligent. My name is Muhammad Ali, not Cassius.
Ali would not let America define him, and he wouldn't even let them name him.
Muhammad Ali, more popularly known as Gaseous Cassius, has just hit town for his
All of the endorsements, all of the commercials, Hollywood, all of that's open to you. And changing your name closes the door to all of that. It would take a lot of courage in the 21st century, but it was unthinkable. You would have to be out of your mind. It was the ultimate statement.
Mr. Clay.
Muhammad Ali, sir.
Mr. Clay.
Muhammad Ali, sir.
Mr. Muhammad Ali, either one.
Just Muhammad Ali.
When you appear before...
And all of a sudden people said, who does he think is the loudmouth and the loudmouth and who does he think he is? Going to take a different name, different religion.
It's an insult to be called Cassius Clay, because I'm not white. I'm Muhammad Ali. I'm a black man. It's the name of our history, our ancestry. So now it's an honor, once coming into the knowledge of self, to be called by my own name. How would a Russian look named George Washington?
Have Muslims around the world who maybe never followed a boxing match now are hearing this name emanating over the press wires, Muhammad Ali, Muhammad Ali.
1964, Muhammad and Malcolm traveled to Africa and the Middle East, but not together. They both had this concern for the whole winds of change that are blowing across Africa. Muhammad Ali was met with all these adoring masses of people, but he was mesmerizing in so many different ways. The kind of charisma that he possessed, it's extraordinary. And Malcolm is traveling alone, meeting with these here world leaders. He was trying to bring the message of 22 million African Americans to the world stage. And bring charges, against the U.S. in terms of their violation of human rights.
Our problem is not an American problem, it's a human problem. It's not a Negro problem, it's a problem of humanity.
He's like a representative, a congressman, a senator from Black America, if not the president of Black America.
The Muslim from America excited everywhere the most intense curiosity and interest. I was mistaken time and again for Cassius Clay. A local newspaper had printed a photograph of Cassius and me together at the United Nations. At that moment, he had captured the imagination and the support of the entire dark world.
Old pirates, yes, they rob I, sold I to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took I from the bottomless pit, but
my father always spoke about the redemption of Africa. And Redemption Song was a homage, if you will, to Marcus Garvey, and a statement that Marcus Garvey made in 1937, that we must liberate our minds from mental slavery, because while others may help us to liberate our bodies, none but ourselves can liberate our minds.
Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds.
have no fear for
I think Malcolm started to see himself, I believe, taking on that mantle.
How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Ooh, some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book.
Because of the spiritual rebirth which I was blessed to undergo as a result of the pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca, I no longer subscribe to sweeping indictments of any one race.
Redemption songs.
May 17th, 1964. Accra, Ghana. Outside the Ambassador Hotel.
Malcolm was with some of his American expat friends, Maya Angelou and others.
Malcolm is being taken to the airport and outside the hotel, and here comes Muhammad Ali.
Now keep in mind that Malcolm, he's been to Egypt, and Saudi Arabia, and in his journal, he writes about Ali as his brother and his friend. So in this moment, in Accra, Ghana, when he surprisingly sees the champ, he thinks that they're going to embrace as brothers.
Malcolm X keeps saying, Muhammad, Muhammad. Finally, Muhammad Ali turns to him and says, look, you turned your back on Elijah Muhammad. You know, you were wrong, brother. You were wrong. He turns around and walks away.
He kind of snubbed Malcolm at that point. Their relationship had pretty much soured, torn apart.
And Maya Angelou would later write about how when Malcolm gets in the car, he's slumped in the passenger seat. He says, I've lost so much. He's lost Elijah Muhammad, who had played a paternal role in his life, and now he's lost Muhammad Ali.
If that's the blood brotherhood we're talking about, I think it was probably the end of the blood brotherhood.
What's your plan now? I'm going back to the States first and see how my family is doing, you know, see what developed.
When he returned from Africa at JFK Airport, my mother handed me over to my father, and he's smiling. I don't know if that's a fond memory or if it's because I've seen the photo so many times, but I feel like I see him looking at me like he's waiting for something to happen.
And this is a golden Muslim mosque that was presented to me by the Islamic Council of all Egypt. All solid gold. Solid gold. This is a gift, our leading teacher, for waking all of us up because we were in a bad state of condition before we heard him.
Have you and Malcolm X, the man who helped convert you to the black Muslim movement, have the two of you split?
When the Honorable Elijah Muhammad cuts a man off, well then he's automatically cut off with all of his followers.
My newspaper carried a story saying upon your return from Africa, you refused to stay at the Teresa Hotel, your former
Well, that's right.
headquarters.
My leader told me, not my leader, but various officials said that it wouldn't be nice being in the same hotel that he was in, and whatever they say, go.
When Cassius Clay was in Accra, he was quoted as saying some things that were not so friendly. Could you have anything to say about that? I don't know anything about what he said. I'm always reluctant to believe what I read in the newspaper that one black man supposedly said about another black man. Well, and if I have anything at all to say about Cassius, I'll say it to him.
I don't even talk about Malcolm X. He's not in our mind. We don't worry about Malcolm X. We have too much to do, and he's just one individual who, as we say, went astray.
Do you still consider him a friend? Yes, I consider all of our people my friend, and usually those who act unfriendly are only reflecting the poison that someone else has put in them. I'm wondering if you still believe
as I think you certainly did at the time you were allied to the black Muslim movement, in a segregated black nation in North America.
I don't believe in any form of segregation or any form of racism.
Are you still a Muslim yourself?
Oh, yes. I'm a Muslim. I believe in the religion of Islam, which believes in brotherhood, complete brotherhood of all people.
Malcolm felt that he was now a big man before the public, and this seemed to have been his desire. He wanted to be seen and heard. He wanted to exalt himself above his teacher.
Once Malcolm is labeled a hypocrite, it marks him. What people think hypocrite means or permits them to contemplate to do puts him in an extremely vulnerable position.
We definitely look at that as one of the worst things you can do is be a hypocrite. You know, we don't affiliate ourselves with hypocrites, and we let Allah take care of our hypocrites.
Why are they threatening your life?
Well, primarily because they're afraid that I will tell the real reason that that I'm out of the black Muslim movement, which I never told. I kept to myself. But the real reason is that Elijah Muhammad, the head of the movement, is the father of 8 children by 6 different teenage girls, 6 different teenage girls who were his private personal secretaries.
She talked about it like that. Elijah Muhammad? You told you everything you knew. Go turn against that man? What a fool.
That's a mistake you made. Your mission and your personal life is separate. If I got a package for you, and my mission is to come across the street and give you the package, that's my mission. If you see me across the street with a young girl or drinking a quart of wine, that ain't none of your business, because I fulfill my mission. The messenger's job is not to discuss or explain his personal life. His job is to deliver the message. Who in the hell are you to question the messenger who took you out of a garbage can, cleaned you up, and put you in front of the world as the #1 spokesman for black people? Now you're gonna question him? That's no.
When Malcolm did that, talked about different bad things about his lifestyle with women and things like that. Everybody loved Elijah turned against him. You shouldn't have said that. Too many people love Elijah. They were killed for Elijah. They did.
February the 14th, 1965. Malcolm's house was firebombed in East Elmhurst.
His house in Queens was seriously damaged by fire, a fire started by Molotov cocktails.
For my mother, a bomb was thrown into the nursery where her babies slept. That has got to be frightening.
My house was bombed. It was bombed by the black Muslim movement upon the orders of Elijah Muhammad. They had planned to do it from the front and the back so that I couldn't get out.
I was working the graveyard shift in one of the automobile plants in Detroit. He was supposed to be on a schedule to come to Detroit to speak. When I heard early in the morning hours that his house had been firebombed in East Elmhurst, I knew he was not coming. I was wrong. At 9 o'clock, Malcolm was on a plane, came to Detroit, spoke at Ford Auditorium. A friend of mine attended as he could smell the smoke on what he had salvaged from his house after being firebombed.
There were about 400 persons present in the ballroom here representing an organization known as the Afro-American Unity Organization, headed up by Malcolm X.
The Audubon Ballroom was a huge ballroom, but it had a very small lobby area. I was sitting in the lobby facing the entrance. I guess I've been there maybe 10, 15 minutes at the most. And I heard Brother Malcolm say, Assalamu alaikum, and next thing I heard was shots.
I saw people crawling on the floor. And so I got down too. And my children were crying, you know, what's going on? What's going on? Are they gonna shoot us? I knew they had shot my husband.
I ran forward. I saw Malcolm hold his side and hold his stomach and fell down.
We have 2 suspects in custody now. One of these men was arrested on the street by one of our patrolmen close by.
Are they members of the black Muslims?
I would not know that.
How do you feel now? I want to kill somebody. That's right, I want to kill somebody. And before the night's over, if Malcolm dies, somebody's gonna die.
He was our manhood. He was a milestone, you know, our anchor.
Malcolm X is the greatest black man since Marcus Garvey.
And when you lost it, you found out how really lost you were as a people.
Mr. Muhammad, yesterday in a Wire story, a Muslim was quoted as saying that the chickens had come home to roost on Malcolm in reference to Malcolm's earlier statement about the assassination of President Kennedy. Do you feel a Muslim brother would make such a statement about Malcolm upon learning of his death?
Well, I don't know. I know nothing about who it was any more than you.
Has any police force, sir, asked you for a statement?
Mr. Muhammad, Malcolm, before he was killed yesterday, said the black Muslims were trying to kill him. Would you comment on that?
I know nothing about it. We're not violent people. This is a shock to us.
What do you think happened to Malcolm X?
What do I think?
Yes.
What I know, what happened to him. I know he deviated and he died.
It's very easy to tell the story of the assassination of Malcolm X as a story of a dissident who leads a movement and is punished for that. And certainly there was definitely bad blood between Malcolm and the Nation of Islam. But from what we have been able to glean from the released FBI files, and they have not all been released, is that the FBI was gleefully watching this gap, this split grow and grow bitterly between Malcolm and the Nation of Islam.
The hidden hand was the federal government. They would never let a white man shoot Malcolm, because that would have been catastrophe. Now, you always have, excuse my expression, niggas who will sell out their mother for $2.
Police are everywhere, on rooftops, standing on fire escapes in plain clothes, and hundreds of New York City policemen in uniform along 147th Street. So far, the last rites for Malcolm X are being performed without incident.
My sisters and I lost our father. But I think for Black people that we lost someone who was brilliant, kind, loving, very compassionate. I think that you have to be in order to have such a profound reaction to injustice.
James Baldwin wrote of Malcolm X. He was the most gentle and tender man I ever met. It's not the image of Malcolm. But he saw Malcolm relating to black folk.
He honored his own code that he taught us. Accept death. Once you accept death, you're free.
The day before Malcolm X was to be buried, Elijah Muhammad made his first public appearance since the assassination. The nation's leader was barely visible behind the human wedge of bodyguards.
If you would like to follow either one against me, go ahead and do it. But your end will be pretty bad. I fear for you.
Also in Chicago, participating in the Muslim convention, is the heavyweight champion Cassius Clay. His adopted Muslim name, Muhammad Ali.
Malcolm X and anybody else who attacks or talks about attacking Elijah Muhammad will die. No man can oppose the message of Almighty God verbally or physically and get away with it.
Muhammad Ali becomes part of this chorus that anyone who crosses Elijah Muhammad must die. That's a tragedy in all this. That Malcolm is the enemy? Was Malcolm the enemy when he brought his family to Miami? Did he think that Malcolm was the enemy when he prayed with him before his fight?
Malcolm X got famous mainly being hard on people like you, white people, white devils, you blue-eyed, blonde-headed dog. Whites cared nothing about Malcolm nor so-called Negroes when he was with Elijah Muhammad, but they seemed to love and follow dead leaders. And now they have a dead man who was nothing but and he admitted himself, Malcolm, was a tramp, had white women selling the body for him. He was nothing until the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made him great. And if Malcolm X had stayed with the man that made him great, taught him everything he knew, today he'd been big, big, big.
In 72, my father went to Mecca. And that is what got my father to true Islam.
Elijah Muhammad, leader of the black Muslims, died of heart failure today in Chicago. He was 77 years old.
We left the nation, I believe, around 75. I was 7 years old.
My brother was so good. See, you gotta be me to understand how I feel. He was, the only brother, only one brother. Blood brothers. I miss him so much, but I'm going to see him in heaven. Oh, I can't wait to see him. I want to hug and kiss him.
Do you remember anything that Muhammad Ali regretted?
Been thinking a few minutes here.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a question.
So many years are going to go by, and we're always curious about a generation or two from now, and what perceptions are they going to have? What estimations will they have of Muhammad Ali, of Malcolm X? You know, what were the trajectories of their lives, and what did it mean Already we can see it being played out in different literature, different films, different venues.
Look who gets it next. The greatest.
The Ali that has been presented to the public since 1996 is a false image. They've managed to edit out those things that made Muhammad Ali controversial in another era.
The same people who gave him a standing ovation in Atlanta. The same people 20 years earlier had talked about him like a dog.
He was a strident critic of white supremacy.
And I just don't think I should go 10,000 miles from here and shoot some black people that never called me nigger, never lynched me, never put dogs on me, never raped my mama.
And I think a lot of that got written out because of his illness and the fact that he wasn't really able to speak.
And even today, America is still a country whose governmental system is based upon freedom, justice, and equality for white people only. There's no such thing as freedom in this country for a black man.
Malcolm, of course, got killed in '65, and so people have been rewriting his narrative ever since. First time I went to the post office to buy Malcolm X stamps, I was conflicted. When Malcolm was killed in 1965, no one would have imagined that he would ever be on any official product of the U.S. government. Seeing Malcolm on a stamp is really symbolic of how his image changed over time.
To a certain extent, he still lives with us. He hasn't been taken away. The spirit of him lives.
You can kill a man, but you can't kill the idea. Every junior high school, every college, every university, all over YouTube, they playing Malcolm's audios and videos just like he's still here. And what he was teaching 50 years ago, you see it happening today.
Black history, American history, and world history changed because of these two guys that had the nerve to be themselves and be bold, and that boldness became contagious. They defined a whole generation of where we walked with our heads held high and our shoulders back.
People forget my father was still this young man in his 20s whose eyes was on the championship. There are things that Malcolm taught him that my father kept with him until his last day.
How did your brother feel about Malcolm X after he was assassinated? Did he ever talk to you about regrets or how he felt?
Never did, but I know my brother. I knew he just felt bad. I hurt my brother bad, yes.
Once he severed ties with the Nation of Islam, Muhammad Ali reached out to our family. I think Muhammad Ali likely felt that he owed it to my father to make sure that his wife and his babies were safe and that they were okay.
There was a double take when I came upon him, somewhere between me turning 18, 19, or 20. Now looking right into his face, and you know how he is. You know, he gives you that little dare, like, is that you? From the very moment we found one another, it was as if no time had passed at all. We cried out loud. His grief for having not spoken to my dad before he left. Having Muhammad Ali in my life somehow sustained my dad's breath for me. Just a little while longer. 51 years longer, until now.
I must be the greatest. I am the king of the world.
He's my brother and my friend. I express what I know and understand around him, but he has a mind of his own, an understanding of his own.
It was destiny that they would feel that brotherhood and learn together. But there were these outside forces that prevented them from continuing this beautiful relationship that had started.
When we were writing my father's autobiography, The Soul of a Butterfly, it was in 2003, I asked him about Malcolm X and how he felt about the relationship and how it ended. And I remember my father sat back in his chair and he closed his eyes. And it took him a little bit to respond, maybe 10 or 15 seconds. And he said to me, he said that turning his back on Malcolm was one of his greatest regrets. He wished that he could go back and tell Malcolm that he was sorry, that he loved him, that he was his friend, and that he was right about so many things.
One of the things that I'll never forget was looking up at Muhammad Ali and asking him, "Did you love my father?" And him saying, "I loved your father with all my heart."
as an instrument to cause you harm, and your worst.
Hey guys, that was a great documentary. You did a lot of good. I want to thank everybody for coming out and viewing this amazing documentary. And at this time, I would like to ask if anyone has any questions or comments about the documentary, anything that you may have learned. You can say them now. Okay. That was really powerful. I think it gives us like a better understanding of like the impact that these key figures had during a time that we've only known in textbooks. And it was what, like 50, 60 years ago? And we think it was so far back, but like, they were real people and they did these things, you know? Yeah.
I think also it's so interesting, like, this is stuff we never learn in school, like in elementary school, like in even in high school. We're always taught that like, okay, Muhammad Ali, he's a boxer. But then Malcolm X, he always, he's viewed as like this, aggressive figure. You know, so like seeing the whole documentary itself, it really gives you like a different perspective of like.
Yeah. I feel like this film was really important, especially times that we're in now, with everything happening in the world, you know, everyone, you know, what happening with like DEI and all of that. I feel like it's really important that we learn our own history. Our history was never really taught to us in its entirety. There's so much stuff that I learned outside of school that I should have learned inside of school. So having films like this, having talks like this, conversations like this, important people in rooms like this, I feel like it's so important. And we can carry this down, you know, the knowledge that we learned today, we can carry it to anyone who's not in this room today. Knowledge is truly power and will get us anywhere we need to go, but it's really, really important that we stay rooted in our origins and that we never lose the power of knowledge because, you know, it's currently trying to get taken away from us and it's our job to not allow that to happen.
No questions?
Any reflection on the film?
Well, I'm going to share one thing. You know, you see the young man in the black hat and several of the pictures in there? The young guy that was sitting at the counter, the young guy that was standing with Ali after he won the fight. You saw that in the film. You see the little young guy with the black hat on. Kind of a black hat. Okay, he kind of looked like me, right?
Thank you.
That's my older brother. My older brother, he passed away in 2015. May Allah be pleased with him, but that's my older brother, Wali Farad Muhammad. He was born February 26, 1948. And because he was born on that day, his grandfather, my grandfather, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, named him Wali Farad Muhammad. And so this is my brother's date of birth, as well as Savior's Day in the traditional nation of Islam today. And I wanted to share that because my brother was there at the fight in 1964. That's why he was pictured after the fight. He was absolutely exhausted. I could see it on his face because he had been out and probably up all day. He was sleeping. You know, he was a young guy. He was used to going to bed at like 9:30, 10 o'clock so he can go to school the next day, you know. And it's one other thing that's on my heart to share, and you guys can take it for whatever you take it. That's my grandfather that Brother Malcolm was talking about, okay? And I want to share with you the truth that I know. I know the sisters that were the secretaries. And if they are between the ages of 85 and 92 now, those that are still living, they were not teenagers in the 50s. Do the math. Take 90 minus 66, because one of them was born in 1960. No, that's 59. And so that individual at 90 years old would be 24 in 1959. And the other person is 85 now, would be 20 years old in 1960. So Brother Malcolm was simply trying to paint a picture that wasn't exactly true. And that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad slept with these teenage girls. He didn't have any teenage girls working for him as secretaries at that time. Not, you know, just do it those that are living. I sat here and did that and thought about it. I said, Sister so-and-so, Sister so-and-so, Sister so-and-so. She's 86, she's 89, and she's 92. They weren't teenagers. So I just wanted to share that one thing with you, that Brother Malcolm was a human being. And just like all of us, he has faults, he has faults. And he obviously wanted to be the leader. And he could not be the leader. And so he was trying to use every effort he could to try to break down and become the leader some kind of way. And that was just him coming out as a human being saying, I'm going to get this guy one way or the other. He put me out and he got me on the outside of this thing that I really love. Well, you should have obeyed. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, on 3 occasions, Malcolm had insubordinate incidents with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He gave him chances. Speaking of Kennedy, chickens coming home to roost was one of them. Having an event after the assassination of Kennedy, he told him to cancel. Malcolm did not cancel that event. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad wanted that event to go away because the country was mourning over the death of the president. Malcolm had the event anyway. That was 2. And there was also the incident that happened in Los Angeles, where the Los Angeles police in the early 60s shot and killed, I believe, Brother Lester, correct me, was it 2 or 3 brothers, was it?
Well, Ronald Stokes was killed.
Ronald Stokes was killed, the other 2 brothers were wounded.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Ronald Stokes was very close to Minister Malcolm. They were friends, they were close. And Minister Malcolm wanted permission from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to retaliate for that incident. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is in his wisdom said, no, I'm not going to have my unarmed FOI going against an armed police and armed military. They will slaughter these brothers, and I'm not having it. And he said, no. Malcolm didn't like that. And he persisted on fanning the flames of trying to move something against that incident because his buddy became deceased at that regard. So there were incidents that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad tried to forgive before that. But the Kennedy situation, he couldn't get around that one. He had to shut him down.
because that was gonna put, he's already under heat, being watched 24/7 by J. Edgar Hoover and his clan and crew throughout the country, in every mosque and in every place, from the 1930s up until the past, and even to this day, they still have infiltrators in all organizations, in Minister Farrakhan's organizations, in Imam W.D. Muhammad's followers as well, still got it. And I want to share something else with y'all. Don't forget this. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad inspired Malcolm Shabazz, Muhammad Ali, Minister Louis Farrakhan. Okay, he inspired all three of those. That came from his gut, spirit, and will to try to do something good for his people. And that's what I got. Unless somebody has a question they want me to answer, that's what I want to share.
I have a question.
Sure.
So how does the Nation of Islam on present day, how does it relate to traditional Islam?
Well, sir, you know the answer to that question as well as I. What are the tenets of Al-Islam? 5 pillars. What's the first one?
So,
Sir?
Shahada.
No, sir, the first one is belief in one God. Then you have prayer, then you have fasting, you have zakat, and you have pilgrimage. As I know it, those are the 5. The organization that you see now of the Nation of Islam, led by Minister Farrakhan, he upheld the tenets that were positive for cleaning up believers and making them like he was. But he departed from the tenets of Al-Islam Imam Wahid Muhammad brought in 1975. Now, here's the situation, and I know this to be a fact. Minister Farrakhan was right there when all of these teachings were being had. If you look at one video on YouTube, Uline Arena 1959, Minister Malcolm opens up for Imam Wahid Muhammad. Imam Wahid Muhammad says the Al-Fatiha in Arabic and one more verse after that, and then explains in 1959 what that meant. Elijah Muhammad, when he went to prison, he had his wife, along with the sisters, handwrite off 114 chapters of the Quran and bring it to him because he couldn't bring a Quran in prison. So he taught in prison Al-Islam to the best of his knowledge from the Quran that was handwritten by the sisters and delivered to him. Okay, so to answer that question, today you have Al-Islam as it exists amongst the immigrated community. You have Al-Islam as it exists among Imam Wahid Muhammad community, which I am. We believe in 5 pillars of faith, and I'm not there because he's my uncle. I'm there because I believe in Allah on the last day. And there's only one creator and one creation for everybody. I don't care how you call or recognize your Lord, there's only one Lord that created this universe and everything in it. All systems of knowledge, everything. And as a believing Muslim, I believe in the Shahada where it says, there is no God but God, and Muhammad is his servant. Meaning Muhammad from 1400 years ago, not the Elijah Muhammad, my grandfather. So that's why I am today. Was I in the Nation of Islam as a kid? Yes. From the time I was born in 1958 up until 1975, February 26, 1975. On that day, things changed because my uncle brought in Al-Islam versus the Islam that we were being taught, which was a hybrid of Bible and Quran. And you gotta remember, the Elijah Muhammad was third grade educated. He did the best he could. He tried to make the conversion of true Al-Islam in the late 50s. Nobody was white. Nobody wanted it. People were not ready. So he continued along with his hybrid, and he left that to his son to bring about in the future. His son was voted in by Shura, or by the brother on the left, Shura Banner, which is English.
Mutual consultation.
Mutual consultation, thank you, sir. So Imam Muhammad was voted in. His father died on the 25th before noon. That day and the next morning, you had to prepare. He was voted in on the 25th, and he had to come before the people on the 26th as the new leader. And I just lost my grandfather. I didn't know how to feel, but I was at Savior's Day with my FOI suit, just like the brothers had there. And we were there in confused grief, but standing strong and tall because that's who we were and that's who we are to this day. Brother Lester and I and the brother here, that spirit hasn't left. And I hope it never leaves. And I hope among you, your burning desire to serve your Lord in whatever way you worship, it never goes away. Because that is what's going to see you through. All the trappings of this world is nothing. You can have all the wealth you want. Can you take it with you? No. What you can take with you into your, and I'm a believer in this life and the next life. Because I don't believe my soul does not leave here. In fact, I've had vivid dreams about my mother, my father, my daughter, and people that have transitioned. They come into my dreams. And my uncle once said to me, you are at your most powerful when he said, he asked the question, when are you at your most powerful? I'm talking about Emmanuel Muhammad. When you're awake or when you're asleep? People say, when you're awake. I said, no, when you're asleep, because what can you do when you're asleep? You can go past, present, and future. And so, again, I can talk, I'm not gonna talk long, because I mean, you know, it's late in the evening, but if you guys have questions, I'm here. I came in from Chicago to be a part of this and enjoy Brother Lester, because I felt that it's important for you to know the truth of it. You know, some things can be misconstrued. Like, for instance, it's always been said, like I said in opening up, that Malcolm established all these mosques single-handedly. No, it was a team effort. My mother participated. Many ministers participated. Many other believers participated in that process nationwide. And you gotta understand that the women, if it weren't for the input of the women, the Nation of Islam would probably not exist today at all. Because the women stood up when their husbands and their brothers and sisters and nephews and cousins went to prison in 1941. You believe that, right, brothers? Of the 1942.
Was it around about that time?
41, 42, they were in prison.
Yeah.
They were in prison for 5 years. So I think it was 42 to 47 because grandpa got out of prison in 47, the brothers were out in 47. And that's, of course, that year my mother got married to my father, who came out of prison. She was in love with him, met him before he went to prison, and then got married when he came out of prison, because he went in with all the believers during that time. But during that time, the structure of the nation was held together by the women. Sister Clara Muhammad led the Nation of Islam at that time in her husband's absence with the women, because the brothers that were able, the only ones that were left behind were the brothers that were too old or the children, they were too young. But the government has been trying to strip this situation down to nothing for years. And Allah is in control. The Lord Almighty is always in control, and what Allah wants will happen. And that is why to this date, you have what we have here today in New Jersey, in Atlantic City, in Chicago, where I'm from, in New York, in Atlanta, in Los Angeles, and places around this country. You still have an existence of what was started by a group of people that had a hunger in their gut and wanted to have something of their own and wanted to get past the racial oppressions and segregation that was going on in those early times. Because again, Black folk weren't treated right. And even in that movie, you still had segregation going on. It was worse than that at the turn of the century when the Honorable Muhammad was doing his searching. And when he met Farad Muhammad, which his wife introduced him to Farad Muhammad. Okay, so women played a very large role in maintaining and keeping and are responsible for the existence, I feel, of this community today. So, ask me something, y'all.
Well, on the, let me play this last clip. This is a little short clip. And this was something in 1992, I think when the movie Malcolm X first came out, the Spike Lee version. We did a program here in Atlantic City. In fact, Dr. Bruce Ransom, I think that's his last name, who was one of the professors here at, I believe this was probably college at the time. And it was at in Atlantic City at the Uptown Complex. And this was the imam at that time making some comments in reference to Al-Haji Malik Shabazz. To that audience.
So the legacy of Al-Haji Malik Shabazz. You look at that legacy, then the extent of what a person lived for, what a person died for, and what in fact he wants to be remembered for. We as Muslims are told that in fact, when you hear the footsteps leave the grave, there's only three things that remain of you. That's the literature and information that you have taught others that continue on after you. The righteous Islamic education that you in fact continue your children. And those forms of continuing charity, and others would say also a good thing. When in fact we want to examine what El Hajj Malik Shabazz believes in, we have to focus on the messages of the Holy Quran and on those things that have been simplified and laid out in the traditions of our prophets of Almighty God that came before us. There's a statement in the Holy Quran that all scriptures will bear witness to. For in fact, it has not changed in any of the scriptures of God. The whole truth to this very day, it held truth then, and it's one of the things that inspired Malcolm in his life. Almighty God tells us in his Quran, in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Say, come I will rehearse what the word of God has really prohibited you from. Join not anything with them. Be good to your parents. Kill not your children on a plea of want. We provide sustenance for you and for them, come not nay to indecent deeds. Whether open or secret, take not life, which Allah has made sacred, except by way of justice and law. Thus He commanded you that you may learn wisdom. And come not nay to the orphan's property, except to improve it, until he attains the age of full strength. Give measure and weights with full justice. No burden to be placed on his soul, but that which he can bear. Whenever you speak justly. Even if it is a near relative is concerned and fulfills the covenant of Allah. Thus will He commanded you that you may remember. Therefore, this is my way. Leading straight, follow it. Follow not others' paths. They will scatter you about from His path. Thus they He commanded you that you may be right. Moreover, we gave these books to Moses, the books, completing our faith to those who do right and explaining all things in detail and the guide in which that they may believe in the news of the Lord. Truly, God has spoken truth. If in fact we want to look at what was the legacy of Malcolm, Malcolm wanted to live where Almighty God has placed in His Quran. He died as what is called this man Shaheed. That means he died standing up for the righteousness and truth that Almighty God has showed him in the Quran. He died a Muslim. He died one practicing submission to the will of God. He was one who answered the call that is given to us in this Quran when God says, I have purchased from you your very soul and everything you possess. Rejoice and triumphant in the wrongdoing in which his name was made. This is the statement from God. This is how he lives his life rejoicing, triumphantly, and worshiping God and bowing down to God. And giving charitably for the cause of God. And spreading truth and righteousness for the cause of God. And then laying down his life, as it says in the Quran, but he's looking for my every prayer, my every sacrifice for the Lord of all the world. The example for us in our lives, live that example. These are these, you call yourself Christian. These are these, you call yourself Muslim. These are these, you call yourself whatever particular religion you have. That is the challenge that's been given to you by God. That is the commonality we all share. That is the goal and the objective of all mankind. Live what God has given us.
That was a part of a program that we did in the 90s, right? As that movie came out. And we had two brothers who worked with Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz in Philadelphia. Brother Mohsen, who was a captain in Trenton and also the minister in Trenton, New Jersey. And also Brother Malik Muhammad from Showcase. And I think Malik might have been the secretary with them during that period of time. We brought them down along with another historian to talk about the history and the legacy and what was going on at that time. Very well attended. It was a beautiful program. And we try to share that along with all the other stuff that's out there with the community in reference to him. We have to go forward. You know, in 2025 right now. We see the conditions on the ground right now. We know that we have to step up. I don't care if you're Christian, Jew, Muslim, we have to make a difference. People of faith must stand up. We just really recently, and just go off a little bit, in December, a great man, a great character, passed away, transitioned, that really served and helped. And was just a good person after he left that office of the White House. And his name was Jimmy Carter. And he served the needs of humanity. And I can recall in the 1977, I think in December, when Imam Muhammad went to the White House along with other leaders to try to help solve problems that we were having both domestically and globally. And one other thing, going back to that in the 60s, when you listen to the inaugural address of President Kennedy, when he said, ask not what your country can do for you, or what you can do for your country. And now it's time for people of faith to stand up and to make a difference. And that was the character of all of the people that came before us, whether it be Marcus Garvey, whether it be our sister Harriet Tubman, whether it be Alhaji Malik Shabazz, Muhammad Ali, Elijah Muhammad, Sister Claire, all of these people, there's so many, Dr. King. So the mission now for us in 2025 is we have to stand up and really make a difference. Because as you can see, the world is on fire right now. And if the good people of faith, do not stand up, we're going to fall into the traps that they've laid for us. So we have to come together collectively as a unit and begin to make a difference. And what we saw in those first 95 years of that social reform program called the Nation of Islam, as we transition to the best practices of Al-Islam, as a case study of what we really can do together, whether it be agriculture, whether it be affordable housing, whether it be healthcare, whether it be solving the problems that face humanity today. And that means we have to come together as a unit. And that's what we're talking about. And that's what those two men, Imam Muhammad and Alhaji Malik Shabazz, Elijah Muhammad, all of them, everybody, we were fighting for freedom, justice, and equality, and that's what we're fighting for still today. And that's the beauty of our great movement. We have to tell our story more, and we have to maybe not let other people tell our story, but we really have to tell our story. The good, the bad, and the ugly. And there's one historian told me you have to tell both the good, the bad, and the ugly. So this was beautiful. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed at the end when the daughters who began to really talk about their fathers and what they thought and the regrets. That was very moving, because you have to remember the atmosphere at that time and the influences of outside forces that was putting pressure on both of these men. So it is really very special, you know, to see this, and I'm just so happy that you all came out today. You know, we have it, it's recorded, so we can share it with the world. And thank you all for coming in.
Thank you so much. It's really so amazing, and I really wish more people came out because this was really powerful, and to have that firsthand, like, somebody who is related to, when we were screening, it was just like, it was amazing. I don't even know what to say. Like, this was so, like, I really wish more people came out because the message was bigger than this, and, oftentimes what we learn in school and stuff, and just about the Nation of Islam itself, it's a lot of negativity, but there was that movement, to bring people together and to kind of uplift the people and to fight the racial oppression and stuff. So yeah, this was amazing. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much for coming out. Yeah, and I hope we can do this again, maybe sometime next year or next semester. Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming out. We do have some newspapers and some pamphlets laid out around the room, so if you guys want to take a look at those. But yeah, and if you guys have any more questions.
We have some Holy Qurans back here. Anything and pamphlets about the faith is here. And this is a lot of what Muhammad Ali used to pass out. Like I said, as he stopped speaking, he would photograph these pamphlets, and he would this is what he would give to people. He would sign most of his name, and then when the person came, he would finish off his name. And that was one of the things that I enjoyed with him, because when we would be traveling together sometimes, we'd be in the limousine or whatever, and he had a briefcase, and he would take the pamphlets out, put it on the briefcase, he would sign them, part of it, and I'll pick it up, and I'll put another one down. So the champ said, he said, "You've been a great help to me." And this is, but alhamdulillah, this is just what he did. And towards the end of his life, this is what he did. When he said he left the Nation of Islam in 1975, he was really a strong follower of Imam Muhammad. He stayed with the Imam Muhammad. He didn't deviate, and he just really picked up the pace in terms of conveying the best tools that he had at that time. It was just him himself, and his autograph on these pamphlets were powerful. And I can recall when Allah called him back, that Allah forgives all of them for their sins and grant them highest places of paradise. I'm looking online, and people trying to sell these pamphlets for hundreds of dollars. But just trying to make a law. But his purpose was to share with them and to convey the message and to give them something that they could walk away with, and hopefully they can pick up hope. But we have a lot of work to do. We haven't gotten started. We're getting older. So Mia and I, we're getting older now. We're slowing down. We're not those 19, 20-year-old kids anymore. And we're looking for the younger people now to pick up the pace, because we were busy as teenagers, literally teenagers. We were moving, as they say, fast moving, quick thinking, right down to the modern time. And today, that's what we should be doing. Now, if you ask me today, well, I said, no, I can't do it, but you guys can do it. All you guys can do is you can do all of this stuff and just run with it. So it's a different day now. AI is on the scene now. Things are moving so much faster. I often ask people that's in the educational field, I said, listen, where are we going to be at in 5 years with AI on the scene? What is the educational situation going to look like? What is the job situation? So we need to really be thinking about that. And we really need to be solving some of these problems, both domestically and internationally, in terms of climate, terms of food insecurity, housing. All of these things are in our window now. We're looking right at them, and we should be trying to solve these problems. And that's what we're doing there. And that's what the Nation of Islam was doing then, and the Islamic community is doing now. We were trying to solve problems, building hospitals. We wanted to build hospitals. We wanted to acquire farmland. We wanted to open up the banking system. We had affordable housing. We had supermarkets where right now you have food insecurity and food deserts. We had supermarkets all in the city. We got to get back to that. Public safety was number one. When you was around Muslims, you were safe. You ain't had no problem. Since y'all didn't have no problem. Y'all didn't have a problem at all. Nobody would even think about trying to do anything to you.
There were consequences.
Yeah. So those times, we have to get back to that. We have to bring that back, and the people will respect us once we start doing our job. Surrendering and submitting to those instructions that are given to us in the Quran and Sunnah. The world's waiting for us to step up and to make a difference. That's not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And I listened to that. And one other thing, just closing, I was a little boy when President Kennedy was assassinated. And I remember that weekend. That whole weekend, all the way to Monday. That's almost 24 hours. His assassination. Into his burial. That's etched in my mind. Whatever shortcomings he had, but that weekend, as a little boy, touched me. Still, tears to my eyes. So we got work in it. What was that?
And thank you, sir, for asking your one question.
Another one too, whenever you're free.
Sure, right now, come on.
So you speak about Muhammad, right?
Yes, sir.
What's his background? Where did he come from? What made him the difference?
I can only go from what I know in the same information that you have. You can go to YouTube, they'll say he's from Pakistan. They'll say he's from the Middle East. They'll say he came from, I can't think of the other place. So going on that, but what I know from what I was raised with, he immigrated from, Beyond Elijah Muhammad states in one of his YouTube videos that he was born in Mecca, okay, Saudi Arabia, of Brother Lester, let me get this right, he had, which parent?
1877?
No, which parent was Caucasian?
Brother,
so you have one Caucasian parent and one black parent. And, of color, and so, but then later I see that he is of Indian origin, from Lahore, India. So, and he came here with a mission to expose Islam in urban areas of the United States. And he was in Detroit, and that was one heck of a place to be in during that time, because there were a lot of people all over the country looking, but Detroit was a special place. And Detroit, right now to this day, is a special place because you have a population of immigrant believers and Jesus, my brain. So I get older, I lose some right words. But anyway, there are believers that came into this country that are populating Detroit big time. There are also Muslims that were born in the United States there as well. And that was the place where Detroit Mosque #1 was established by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad after meeting with Farad Muhammad for over 3 years and learning things from him. And from that came the Nation of Islam. I mean, Farad Muhammad established the Nation of Islam, but he appointed, wasn't a vote, he appointed Elijah Muhammad as the minister, or as the minister to lead the community. And there's a story to go along with that. There were people that didn't agree, and Elijah Muhammad had to run for his life and hide out and all that sort of thing. He did that for several years, and then, not only did his comrades was his enemy, then the government became his enemy and he was in jail. So Allah put the blessing on that situation to make it flourish and do what it did. And out of that, because he was an avid reader, and again on YouTube, I'm learning a lot from YouTube that's verified what I was told as a youngster. The Honorable Brother Muhammad, peace be upon him, will go into his father's library and read Quran and read books about Prophet Muhammad. And so again, when people say the Honorable Muhammad taught shirk, the Honorable Muhammad taught to the best of his knowledge, Islam. He was trying to introduce Islam in the proper way in the 50s and it didn't fly. People wasn't ready for it. They weren't ready for Ramadan in the right moment. They weren't ready to pray 5 times a day. And as a youngster in school, I learned Sajda, I learned Arabic, letters, English, and I even spoke Arabic. But of course, now at age 66, I don't remember that because that's what I did for several years as a youngster. So there was an effort to put us on the right path, but it wasn't time for that. And his son, Dean, learned Arabic. Okay, there was an Arabic teacher brought into the school. Brother Lester has a picture of them in their class being taught Arabic by the teacher that was brought in the 50s to learn Arabic. And there's one survivor or 2 survivors from that class, is Brother Imam Dardel Kareem and his wife, Sister Gloria. They were sitting in that class along with Imam Wahdi Muhammad, along with Akbar Muhammad, along with others I can't remember. But they were in that Arabic class. And from that, Imam Muhammad was drawn to Islam. And it wasn't from some outside source. His father had those books. His father brought in the Arabic teacher to teach Islam and teach Arabic in the school. And to teach us as students how to pray properly, to say Al-Fatiha, to say verses of the Quran. We would do the shorter ones towards the last Jews, but they were easier to remember. You can remember the chapter 3, Surah 3 is long, But unless you want to be what are you going to memorize the Quran? Hafiz, yes, not Hafiz, but I remember some verses. But still, we were taught these things as youngsters. So by the folk not latching on to that, John Black Muhammad had to pivot, and he had to continue the teaching that he had, but then he went to economic programs where Brother Lester said, well, we successfully had several farms. We successfully had meat packing plant, successfully had a bank on the south side of Chicago where it was owned by the people. And the Nation of Islam was a collective effort of a lot of people that had faith. That was the bottom line. And no one did anything by themselves. It was all by themselves. It was always teamwork. So I want to stress again, if Brother Malcolm established mosques, yes, as a part of a team, he established mosques. My mother was on that team, and a lot of other believers were on that team as well. So, good question, sir, number 2. Is there question number 3, anybody?
Whatever happened with him? Brother Muhammad.
Brother Muhammad, I have no idea. He went away in 1933, 34, he got arrested and he disappeared. There's some rumor that he came back in the 70s and he was somebody else, but I will share this with you. My mother said that don't look like the guy that she remembered. That's my mother's recollection about that situation. Others say it was him, others say it wasn't. But again, I wasn't around in the 30s, so I can only go by what, folks tell me in that regard. But he did exist, he did teach John Black Muhammad, and that work produced the Nation of Islam, the good tenets from that, the cleaning up of people. It worked for Brother Malcolm, it worked for Brother Minister Farrakhan, it worked for Imam Wahdi Muhammad, it worked for all of those people that have come to prominence that you see in the space of prominently nowadays. That came from that period of time in the Nation of Islam. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teaching. Cleaning up. Any other?
People still wear the rings?
No. In fact, I had a ring other than, unfortunately, with the 18 karat gold ring with the crescent and the star, and it was stolen. My house got broken into and it sold both of my rings, and my class ring and another ring I had to buy. And because of that, my heart is broken. I don't wear jewelry too much except and a watch.
Before we pack up, can we take a picture?
Yes, ma'am, it's fine with me.
Is Lester?
Brother Lester, you got his orders.
Oh, we were just gonna get a quick picture.
Oh,
Is that okay?
okay, yeah. I'll start the breakdown.
Yeah, we can take it from here.
Yeah, that may be good.
If you guys can join us in the picture, then.
Yeah.
Yes, Lauren. That was on cybersecurity warfare. But I think it will require your.
You have to close the projector.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's like.
I'm gonna get off the Zoom. Is that okay? Okay.